Hello, everybody. It's Philip Lee returning with a new episode of Civil War Chat. And today is the 29th of September, 2021. Click on the notification of the subscribe button on the lower right here to subscribe, and on the upper right to click on the notification bell to be notified when the next episode comes out. Okay, so today's topic or talk is how to spread your viewpoint. Seems like we're always, those of us that want to defend Confederate heritage and Southern heritage, we write our stuff, we get it out there, and we just have a hard time, getting the viewpoint spread. So that's what today's topic is about. 12 days ago, I posted a list of websites that advocate for free speech and intellectual, not skin deep, diversity on campus. Intellectual diversity, not gender diversity, not skin color diversity. I've since read Senator Josh Hawley's new book, The Tyranny of Big Tech. He explains that Americans, particularly younger ones, are progressively getting their news pre-selected for them by Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Articles from the websites that I listed, even though they're open-minded and often favorable to our viewpoint, they rarely, if ever, get into the big tech news feeds. Articles that do not get into those feeds increasingly simply do not exist for the large mass of the public. Thus, any articles from the sites that I listed 12 days ago that may have positive assessments of Southern historical leaders such as Robert E. Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, George Washington, they're all virtually unread. In 2019, 2 years ago, over 80% of Americans owned handheld internet-connected computers in the form of smartphones and or tablet computers. Over 80% of the internet, over 80% of the people access the internet at least once every day. And nearly 30% of the users were online, quote, almost constantly, close quote. Now, almost half of those aged 18 to 29 were online, quote, nearly constantly, close quote. That's almost half. All those percentages probably increased, right, over the last 2 years. One survey reveals that 30% of kids now dream of becoming YouTubers, like me. They obviously are planning to be bigger ones, but 30% of them dream of becoming YouTubers, which is triple the number who dream of becoming astronauts. Similarly, a 7-year-old British study, and this is 7 years ago, shows that smartphone users, like the iPhone, they check their devices 220 times daily, which is an average of once every 4.3 minutes. As a result, audiences have been leaving the once staple television network evening news shows from ABC, CBS, and NBC for years. They've been abandoning them for years. Among those that remain, about 2/3 are ages 55 and over. By 2018, 43% of Americans got their news from Facebook, which had added a news feeds feature to their service only 12 years earlier. The feed is designed to be addictive by providing endless scrolling and including updates from Facebook friends. Similarly, Google has morphed into an all-in-one version of a newspaper, TV station, and radio station. In 2018, it raked in about $4.7 billion for news content alone, which is about equal to the aggregate digital advertising for all other American news organizations combined. Traditional news publishers have become supplicants to Google, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Their websites, meaning the traditional news publishers, they need the big tech for referrals. Increasingly, readers come to the traditional news outlets only after finding a story or video linked on YouTube, Google, Twitter, or Facebook. Since youthful Americans often access the internet through smartphones and tablet computers, they usually get free news feeds from applications included by Apple and Google. With the touch of a finger, users can open a list of hyperlinked headlines pre-selected by Apple and Google. The services are merely aggregators of the news. They don't generate any of the content. That is done by the journalists. Instead, the aggregators provide an audience for the website of legacy news organizations that have struggled to offset their declining print revenues with digital advertising. Unfortunately, the Apple and Google news feeds are curated. That's the term they use, curated, by journalists and programmers educated at elite universities where identity politics dominates. And where identity politics dominates, nothing about Southern history that is good can be said. On the antitrust front, Google also exploits its ownership of YouTube to make tie-in sales. Specifically, businesses wishing to advertise on YouTube are often coerced into purchasing Google AdSense advertising, which are ads that are to be placed on other websites, not YouTube websites. Thus, if a guitar maker wants to purchase ads on a popular YouTube show about guitars, Google will ask that he also purchase a fixed amount of ads to be placed on non-YouTube websites through Google AdSense. And such websites might include the seller of sheet music. As the senator puts it, quote, advertisers pay a king's ransom to get their digital ads on YouTube, and then YouTube insists that advertisers promise to use Google ad services to place ads on other non-YouTube websites, close quote. Senator Hawley comes to two conclusions. First, companies like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, and Apple warrant close attention by the Justice Department's Antitrust Division. Future acquisitions should be denied if they are going to reduce competition. YouTube and Google should be split apart, and Facebook should divest Instagram and WhatsApp. Second, Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act should be updated to make companies like Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Amazon liable for any misinformation posted by their users at their sites if these big tech companies don't stop their one-sided political censorship. If they censor political input on a good faith basis, that's okay. But if they keep this one-sided nonsense up, then they should become liable for the misinformation that their users post to their website. If, for example, Twitter blocks stories like the one it did for the New York Post last year, just before the election, concerning Hunter Biden's laptop, then Twitter should become liable for any misstatements of fact made by any of its users. Now, if it were to become liable for that, it would be bankrupted in a day, because there's a lot of misstatement of facts by the nonsense Twitter users. And that should be the penalty for them if they keep up this one-sided censorship. Okay, that's what I have to say about, how to get your viewpoint out there. Now, what I'd like to do is to share with you this. My book, Trading with the Enemy, which is about the Civil War, the trade between the North and the South during the Civil War. The 2/3 of the cotton that came out of the South during the war went north of the battlefield into the North. Only 1/3 went through the blockade to Europe. There's a lot of intrigue in this, and it's a part of the war that's not much discussed. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's fascinating stuff. Now, to get a copy, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any bookstore, it's a hardcover, $26. If you want an autographed copy, it's $29 from me. But you got to email me, Phil, PHIL _ Leigh, LEIGH @ me.com. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.